Good evening, and thanks for joining us for Our View, the show that brings the voice of poverty to the table in our community. Joining me this evening is, of course, my co-host, Mia Henry, Workforce Experience Coordinator. You have to slow down to say that. And my lead case manager for males, Dylan Rank. And our guest tonight, Monty, from Dylan's Case Management. So we've been working on this series of whose responsibility is it anyway, and tonight we're going to talk about Monty's story and Dylan's work with Monty as a case manager, and why you find yourself stuck without being able to achieve upward mobility. So Dylan, tell us a little bit about your approach to Monty's case management.
So with Monty, it's actually really, really easy for me because I don't have to do a lot. It's mostly like Monty comes to me with what he needs, or if I ask Monty to do something, he's very quick to hop right on it. As far as removing barriers and things, I mean, it's just like any other case. We present the options that are available, and Monty's one of my good cases where like he'll actually jump on the good options or the better choice. Whereas like not all of my cases are that easy to lead them where I want them to go.
Because Women's Co-op doesn't tell anyone what to do.
Right.
We present options and opportunities and choices.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the opportunities Dylan's offered have been good options, like pushing you in the right direction?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Dylan's been working with me for quite a bit of time, you know. I mean, I fell out a couple different times, but I always came back, you know. I always try to make sure that I do what you guys need and beyond, you know, because you guys go and beyond for me. I mean, you guys help me out with a lot. I mean, I'm in a temporary placement for the first time because of you guys, you know. And I appreciate all that. And Dylan, man, you are a star. I can tell you that. You make sure you even ask me if I'm feeling okay, just to see if I'm all right, you know, some days. You know, and he is a good caseworker, you know.
Is that important, Monty? Like, you come to a case manager or caseworker in the system and you want a service of some sort, right? You need something.
Yeah.
Does it matter that your case manager says to you, how are you feeling? Or that you're presented with options and choices?
Oh yeah, and of course. I mean, if you're gonna work with somebody, you know, you wanna, and you're really trying to help them, you wanna get to know that person and actually like know what's going on with that person, see if you guys can fix something, you know. And me having all these different options, like he said, I choose the better option. Sometimes it may be a little harder for me, but that's the better option anyway. I mean, nothing really is easy in life, you know. Mm-hmm. You just gotta work towards it, and you guys do give up the best options I could ever pick from.
And it's not always that those options are like necessarily like the right choice in every instance. Like there's going to be a corner you got to cut somewhere, or something you got to do to get by, to make ends meet, to survive another day. And we talk about those things, and you know, I'm never like, hey Monty, yeah, you should rob this store or something. I mean, I'm not leading you astray, but sometimes there are those real moments where it's like, okay, we might have to wait on calling for the assistance with this, because if we wait a couple days, maybe they'll help with a little more, or, you know, without throwing any partners under the bus, or ourselves, of course. There are ways to use the system and use the resources to benefit yourself the best. And that's what's easy. And what I like so much about Monty is, like he said, he had some falling outs. No matter what, he always comes back. He always gives 110% when he's with us. He always is willing to do whatever we need. So in that relationship, when we are getting so much help, it's really easy to give so much more back to the person.
You do work really hard at Co-op Friend. So I guess we should say that Monty is in our custodial program in building maintenance. And is kind of a jack of all trades around our building. So
yes,
really nice to have. Mia, do you find that, so we have two purposes at Co-op, really. There's the supportive services and case management side, and then there's what we all do, which is the work experience side of things, getting people opportunities to start career paths. Mm-hmm. So they're coming specifically for that. That's what Monty came for too, is help me get onto a career path and start a work opportunity. Do you find that most of the time there are also a lot of barriers and supportive services needed outside of that?
Absolutely. And I was going to ask Dylan this question, or Monty too. Like, I feel like a lot of the men that we put in programs don't really reach out for the case management, the other services. And I don't know if it's because of they think that they're really not accessible to them, or they think there's nothing out there for them. I'm kind of curious as to how Dylan was able to get Monty on the path to taking advantage of the things that are out there that men don't typically either know, want to, or for whatever reason don't take advantage of. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. So do you find that, Dylan, that the men don't? I mean, if you think about social services, we kind of are a world that was always mom and babies, right?
That's still, I mean, there are new programs and agencies and things that do benefit or work towards like families or towards the dads or just people in general, and that's great, but there are a lot of options available everywhere for men, and they're not the same resources you give to mom and baby. And there are, I guess I don't know really how to say it, but like we have so much specialized funding at co-op, so that's how we were able to put them through janitorial, through our work experience program.
So the scholarship
Yeah.
monies were available to be
And those
able to
are
get the opportunity.
options for other agencies too, I'm sure, but I guess I'm just not as familiar with them yet.
Did you feel that way, Monty? Like, was it easy for you to go for social service support? And if not, why?
Well, of course not in the beginning. If you guys remember, like I've been there 3-4 times, you know, and at first it's not. I was struggling with a bunch of different things, you know, like my criminal history, and I used to have an addictive past to substances, and I guess I didn't think I was ready, or I wasn't like enough for it. You know, I don't think I could ever be enough to do anything, but I kept coming back, and you guys kept always embracing me with open arms. You know, me and Dylan got real buddy. You know, we laugh, joke. I text him, say some funny stuff. You know, he's my dude. He's like the brother of everything. You guys are like the moms, and he's like the brother. He came in and helped out, you know, and he's like, at any time, man, because I've walked out and told you guys I don't know if I'm going to be back before, and wasn't back. And he always said, you can always come back. Just come back.
Actually makes sense now that I can answer the question better, because I'm noticing with the guys, they'll come in, we'll get them working, we'll get them going. They're cool with me, you know, but when it comes to relationships with Dylan, that's kind of where it draws them in. Like I'm noticing a couple of guys now are saying, yeah, give me Dylan's number again. I want to ask Dylan. So I think it's about the relationship and them getting comfortable with us and seeing how we move as an organization. And there's no judgment. There's, you know, we help everybody with a myriad of things. Like you can literally call or text and say anything, and I might be able to help you with it. If it's a ride, drop off your check, whatever. So I think when they see that, it opens them up to asking about more things. And I see that happening with some of the guys we have now.
Yeah, most definitely. It does help, and it helps having like that separate line to be able to talk to all the guys. And it's just funny because I don't know, it like as time goes on, like just looking back at the different things, and like you said, like the myriad of things that we helped him with. Like I had a gentleman last year and his toilet was down and out, and so for like weeks he's texting me between me and the landlord, and like we're trying to figure out like how we can settle this deal and like how we can fix his toilet, and he's telling me all the different ways he's making means without having a toilet, and it gets good. It's really fun, the stories
But I mean,
and
that's
the relationships.
reality when you're living.
It's different. We're not just like a place where you come and you fill out papers and this is the service you're going to get and this is what we have and that's it. It's
This is a
family.
we want to help you in every way possible to be stronger and live a better life. I do think too, though, that the dynamics, it is like, even if you look at 12-step recovery programs, right? What is the one thing that they always tell you? Don't get involved with the opposite sex in the rooms, right? Not at first, like 2 years or something, I think I got told. But the reality of it is that even when we do co-ed things, Men are not going to be as open and honest, and neither is women, because the opposite sex is there, and we're set to impress, right? Not
Good point.
not to really be that kind of real.
Because they might not want to tell me that they need
Right.
a thing, that they don't have a problem telling Dylan they need a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
That makes a lot of
Because
sense.
man to man.
That makes a lot of sense.
You think that makes sense,
Oh, yeah,
Monty?
that definitely makes sense.
So, topic at hand, though, why is it that you think that upward mobility is difficult at this point? I mean, we've been trying to work on housing for roughly 90 days,
Yeah.
and we haven't been able to get housing. What's the reason for that?
It's because every time I do the applications, they see my criminal history, and I mean I can't lie. I've had a really bad criminal history. I mean I got.
Well, when you say bad, what are we talking about? We're not talking about murder and
Oh no, definitely
kingpin
not.
stuff.
Definitely not.
We're
I have
talking
El
about
Chapo.
some assaults, right? We're
Yeah,
talking about some assaults.
I got some assault and batteries on my record.
And some
police
possessions.
assaults. I have paraphernalia charge. God willing, it was going to be a drug charge, but they dropped it down to a misdemeanor of a paraphernalia. But it still looks so bad to everybody, especially when I have false domestics that I beat the case, even though it's still there on my record. Or I did used to be a little bit after getting arrested for a couple different domestics. I ain't gonna lie, I was drunk, I was off drugs, and there's been times where me and my old lady has been into it, and I've shoved her down, and and I have to go. When they come, I don't even fight them. I'm like, yep, I did it,
Right.
But now that I'm off these substances and getting help with you guys, and I'm on my prescription pills now, I have a better outlook on life, and I'm not as violent as I used to be, I still
Well,
get
you
mad.
have other coping mechanisms now.
Yeah, I still get mad, it's just, but
You handle it
exactly. I handle it a whole lot different.
But you were saying too, I don't even know what we're calling it necessarily, but like the group therapy thing we just started.
Oh, it's a life skills class.
Oh,
life skills one.
But it basically talks about, because, I mean, when you're a person who starts using at a young age, you do it because you're trying to cope through something.
Yeah.
And you do that for years, right, Monty?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then you learn how to recover and get off of it, but you still don't have those necessarily coping skills for life.
Well-
so the first time something pops up, bam, you're going to go to what you know.
Right.
And so this class is not so much about how to stay off of drugs, because you're there.
Oh yeah.
It is about, how do I live life now as a sober
Because you
person,
got to learn new.
and how do I
everything
cope? How do I get angry and walk away, not push her down? Right.
Learning new habits or learning new ways to cope with things or new calm down techniques. Yeah.
And by the way, that class is held weekly, group sessions. It's free to the public at Women's Co-op on location at Trinity. And there is also a therapist always available who does one-on-one group sessions afterwards to drop in. You can talk about anything. So if you're out there and you're living under that kind of stress and pressure, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and join that group.
Oh yeah, I recommend it definitely. It was for the first time. It was the first class I went. Yeah, he made me feel comfortable. He even got me to download this app called How We Feel.
Oh, okay.
It's a pretty good app. It's free. Nothing on there you have to buy. You check in. You pick how many times a day you want to check in. How you feeling? And then you explain why, who's around you, and stuff like that. He actually gave me a pretty good coping thing. When I get a little upset, I go into that thing and use it.
Nice. And so, Dylan, the housing for Monty, because he does have a family. It's okay to say you're staying at a hotel locally.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
expensive. Pretty much everything that you're earning with us in your training program is going to pay
straight
for
into it.
housing. How do we change that and get him access to housing because I personally know every one of these application fees, it's you and your significant other, so it's $60, $60, $60, only to get denied.
Every time.
And no one will tell you ahead of time. They just say, fill out the application. How is Co-op going to move past that and get Monty housing?
That is a good question. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
So within a bank of private landlords, do you have more opportunities there, or
Honestly, I don't know at the moment.
because everything you guys have tried, it's been denied?
Denied.
And do you
Especially
feel like
how-
it's due to the criminal history?
I think it's that, and
The low income.
the low income, and then there's only so much housing options for low income in general, and especially in Battle
And especially
Creek,
right now.
and especially right now. So all those things like stacked on top of each other makes it extremely hard to find any options out there, whether it be a trailer, an apartment, a house, anything, even a plot of land to just put up a tent.
Well, I
you know,
saw
like-
a post on Facebook too a couple days ago, and I'm not going to name the area because people get all offended about that. And I'm not saying any area of town is better or worse, but it is a lower district of Battle Creek, and someone was outraged that the rent on a 2-bedroom house was $13.50 a month
Man,
in a neighborhood where rents are normally around 5.
Yeah, that's
6.
crazy.
So
Crazy now.
that's more than doubled in rent. And so then and landlords usually want you to make at least 2 times the rent.
It's just ridiculous. If they're asking that much more, you'd think that there'd be a big push, or at least I feel that there should be a big push that, like, if they're going to be making that much more money, there should be that much more money invested into the property and
Yeah, for
making
sure.
it nice. And
Why is there not more low-income housing in Battle Creek?
Well, I mean, there are some options, but there are huge waiting lists, and Monty
Well, it
would
seems like
not.
there's not enough options.
There
Section
isn't.
8.
And Monty wouldn't qualify for
Oh,
them
so he's
because of his
criminal.
criminal background.
right, and they're multi-layered, so they're
Okay.
different. They want specific people with those multiple barriers to be in specific areas, is what it feels like, or to be stuck in a certain spot.
And I do know the city, in part of their redevelopment or their development plan, community development plan, we talked about a couple months ago. She said that there were some things coming for housing, and they were going to take some of these things into consideration. But they also said that they didn't even break ground till one of them was 2025, and the
Yeah.
other one was spring of 2026 or something. And then you've got however long it takes them to build it. And I'm amazed by this, guys, because literally the Shell station down the street from me, I live in Urbandale, the Shell station down the street from me, they decided to remodel it. Only what they did was completely leveled it
I seen
same
that.
thing.
I seen
and
that. I was like,
rebuilt
I thought
it.
they tore this down.
And it was in no time. Like every night that I would drive home from work, I'd be like, oh my gosh, they have a roof. Oh my gosh, they have walls.
It's a whole building
Yeah.
now, and the sign's even up.
There were coolers like within 2 weeks. And you look at that and you go, now, how can Shell build a gas station
good
in
point.
2 weeks?
Good point.
And we can't build housing in 2 years? Not to mention all the structures that we have available to us in Battle Creek that sit empty or vacant or
Probably
you know,
because
not viable.
Shell's a profit-driven business, and these housing complexes wouldn't be worth.
yeah.
It's all what it comes down to. The motivation to build them is not there as it is for the Shell.
So if we were gonna look at this as a group, whose fault is it? Whose responsibility is it for Monty to get housing? Is it his responsibility? We would say no, because no person should have to pay for mistakes for the rest of their life. He's paid for those mistakes. So it's not his responsibility. He's doing what he could be doing. It's definitely not our responsibility because Dylan is tapping into every local resource that we have that is available to Monty. Whose fault is it that Monty can't get housing, which would get him more stable and put him and his family ahead? Is it local landlords? Is it the state of Michigan? Is it federal funding?
I would say state and federal, because if you don't want a homeless population, you get mad about Skid Row, you get mad about people being homeless. You know that we have a huge penal system, people coming in, coming out every day. You know in the back of your mind you have to provide somewhere for these citizens to live.
Yeah, because
No
they
matter,
are residents.
yeah, whatever
right.
that looks like, you have to figure something out. And we as a government, as a state, have not been doing a very good job figuring that out.
I agree.
I agree with that too, because I mean, obviously before I was in the local hotel, man, I was outside in the tents. I was outside leaning up against buildings trying to stay warm. I was out there, and they say we can camp. They used to have a law where you couldn't camp. They said now you can, as long as it's like out of sight, out of mind. But then when they discover where your camp is, they destroy it and tell you to get on.
Yeah.
Don't even take you to jail. Don't give you a ticket, nothing. Just take your stuff and go. It's crazy. And then you got places like 209 over there, the Battle Creek homeless shelter that got closed down. they said they had enough funding. I've been hearing that they had enough funding to keep it going. It's just, how come guys couldn't keep it going? Where was that money going? You know what I mean?
The reality of it is that we learned on our show
Yeah.
is that they did not have the money to
Didn't?
keep it going.
Dang.
And we have the Haven locally, but that's not the answer
Yeah.
to everything.
Right.
I mean, that's a 30-day shelter, and the reality of that is, and I love my friend Daniel with all my heart, and the entire community of Battle Creek knows that. You know, he's a good ED, and the Haven is a good mission, and they do good work. But if you were to go there, we would not be able to get Mashonda, your girl, or your family there because there's never any room in the family shelter, the women's shelter. So there might be room in the men's shelter, but she would be doing warm shelter. And how do you ask a family to separate like that?
It's pretty hard.
I mean, times are tough already, right? And so the option that you're doing for what you're paying there a month, you could be paying $1,500 a month in rent somewhere
Yeah,
if given the opportunity.
it's true. It's pretty.
So I think I agree with Mia that this has got to be, you know, even if we want to say some of the local landlords are being bogus because in a neighborhood that's not warranted, they're charging $13.50 for rent for a place that's worth $6. You could fault them a little bit, but we have capitalism in
That's
this
what I say.
country.
It's free enterprise. You have a
And
right
it's free
to charge
enterprise, so
what
you have the
wanna
right to charge what you want to charge.
And we have a right to not pay those charges.
That's
because
right.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
So yeah.
But there is this other thing about being human too, right? And giving people access and opportunities. And I really agree with Mia that I think it's our county, our city, and our state and federal government that needs to look at this issue and figure out what kind of programs or what we can do to help our residents that are at that lowest level of income earning and do have some of these barriers, because Monty's not the only one that you're serving that's getting left out of the housing equation, right?
Right.
Could housing make a huge difference in your story, friend? Like if
yeah.
you had a stable place?
Oh yeah, it'll help me out like more than anybody could ever help me out, you know, because I have kids that are in the system right now, and I'm trying to fight to get them back.
And where you are right now will not
Okay.
bring them back.
Exactly, I can't
Because
have
it's
kids.
transitional, is that why?
Yeah, it's not stable, so they
Right.
don't consider that stable.
The stability is important, and not even
And
just
so
for the kids, but
technically, if
for
you can't answer this question of housing, you will lose the rights to your children.
Yep. They already got a family that they want to adopt them, and they love them. They even got custom bed frames for the kids already, and custom blankets with their names on it, you know. So it's like they're already planning on taking them. So it's like I'm trying to do everything in my power right now, and it's kind of limited because of my background.
And the sole reason for the forward movement of termination, is it just that you don't have housing? Is that a big piece of it? Are there other things too?
Well, there is other things, but that one is the major piece. Is me having income
In stable housing?
and stable housing is the main thing that the judge told us personally. But our caseworker wants us to do like 3-4 different classes, it seems like, on top of making sure that we keep up on those appointments, keep up on our visits, and then I work.
And then trying to find housing on top of
And
it.
on top of that, so it's like it's
almost like
This is
almost
not going to make
impossible.
me very
It's not, but it's
popular in the
almost.
community to say this, but I'm going to say this right now. When the foster care system was invented, created, it was created because cities were starting to form, and children who were poor and families that were poor were coming into the cities, and they were stealing and they were doing things to help them survive. And so some well-intentioned folks in our government and in our systems would put these children on trains and ship them off out west, and they would become fosters to families who could afford them, and then they would work for these families, basically work farms, work land, do these things. And I was appalled by the fact that we could build a system who took poor people's children simply because they were poor. If you're abusing your children or there are neglectful practices, that's one thing, but being too poor to be able to afford does not seem like a reason to take somebody's children and give it to the family over here who can afford to have engraved beds and blankets that have their names on it, because there's such a thing as love and parenthood. I don't know, am I barking up a wrong tree here? Does everybody want me to
No, that makes a lot of
jump
sense.
off this soapbox?
It's like we throw our philanthropy into the wrong pots, I feel like.
Because shouldn't we care about that? Shouldn't we care about keeping families unified and together? I mean, like, again, we work in that system. I, as a human being, appreciate that system because there are children who are being abused, who are being neglected every day, and without that system, these families wouldn't get the help that they needed. And oftentimes, the system does come in and help families stay together, and they stay together as stronger families.
You know,
But when you're saying termination's going to happen and the sole reason for it is I can't establish housing and enough income to be able to say I can afford my children, you say, well, does the foster care system still work the way it was built?
well,
Which is poor people don't get to have kids.
how come they don't make the adjustment? Okay, when the landowner wants to build a strip mall somewhere and, well, there's not enough land available for this, the city pushes back, you can't do it. Why is the adjustment not made? Okay, he can't have his children because he doesn't have housing. Why are we not taking into the equation that there is no housing available? Why is that not part of the conversation? It would be different if there was a multitude of housing opportunities available.
And
he
you
was
just
just
weren't
slacking
taking
off. He
advantage of
wasn't
it.
doing
Yeah.
it. There are no resources. How can you penalize him for the lack of resources?
Did the system support you at all to try to help you get housing? Like,
No, they just told me, well,
They just said
here's
you
a
have
piece,
to.
here's some places you can call, that's it. And then every time I called
did you
them
call those places?
Oh yeah, like Neighborhood Inc. and all that. I've called them. I've tried to do the Section 8 waiting list thing. Got denied because of my criminal history. And then again, the Neighborhood Inc. and I don't like to talk bad, but like they told me I still have to go look for the place and they will have the funding for it. And I'm sitting there like, then why do you guys like?
so they have funding available for you to get into a place, but they can help you find the place either.
Exactly. And what if I get denied? You still got this funding to hold in for me. You know, you saying
It's
you got
almost like you're stuck in this hole where it's like you have to give so and so a brick and so a log, but you only have one brick or one log. Like you don't have both, and the only way you can start to build what you need to build is you need both.
You need the
but you
log
got to
and the
trade
brick.
the brick to get the log. You got to trade the log to get the brick, so you never really have both. So you can never start building. And then with those cornerstone pieces missing, the stability or the income, and you're having trouble because you can't go to get income, you can't go to get stability because you're missing the log and the brick that you need to go start those things. You can never build your house up. So why are you worried about locking your windows and having fancy door handles and things like that? Why is that even in his wheelhouse right now? It's not.
Right. Because he's still
trying to
get
figure
the
out how
log
he
and the
can
brick.
capture a brick and a log at the same time.
And we're talking about
Terrible
Monty.
analogy, but
Well, we're talking about Monty right now, but we talk about this in all of our shows. How close is everybody to being homeless? What
right.
one,
And
two
that's the
checks
thing.
away?
That's the thing.
So then now I'm also 1 or 2 checks away from possibly losing my kids because I can't.
It does make you think about
Right.
it.
If you
I mean, I
really-
don't have children
I don't-
at home anymore. This is
Yeah.
my child, but
Right? No, I
it makes me worry for my children who have children.
yeah, absolutely.
Because ultimately, I mean, the system isn't going to help you. They're going to give you resources for the community, but if those resources don't work,
And if those
too bad, too
resources-
sad. Like, it's not going to be considered. No one's going to tell the judge when you go to court, well, Monty would like to have housing, but he's meeting these obstacles. What's discussed is Monty still doesn't have housing. And that's and true enough. I mean, you have to have housing for your children, right?
Yeah.
But who cares about the barriers? And so we're left with, because we're going to close out here in a minute, we're left with the system and government saying that it's your responsibility.
But then don't.
But
give us
they're
no
not giving
options.
you any options or opportunities for you to be responsible and do it.
puts you in a never-ending circle.
That's what it feels like every day, man. I wake up, repeat, do the same thing, and it's like nothing's getting nowhere, you know what I mean? But I'm really trying though.
I see you trying every day, Monty. I think all of us
yeah,
do.
we gotta all fight because it's serious.
It
is.
It feels serious.
It is. Well, thank you for joining us today. We wish you good luck. and we're all going to keep working on it. I know Dylan's going to keep working on it.
Oh yeah.
Maybe some nice person who's out here watching has the answers. I don't know. Maybe
Clear
there's,
opportunity, something.
yeah, an opportunity or something. If you're a landlord out there and you care about Monty or this situation, or you know someone who can, reach out to Women's Co-op. You can ask for Dylan and maybe help out with this situation. Thanks for joining us.